Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on AWS Certificate Manager ACM. So this lecture will contain all these topics. What is AWS Certificate Manager? Understanding SSL TLS certificates, private certificates, public versus private certificates, benefits of AWS Certificate Manager, certificate types managed by AWS Certificate Manager, AWS certificates, regional resources and usage, and services integrated with AWS Certificate Manager. So what is AWS Certificate Manager? AWS Certificate Manager simplifies the process of provisioning, managing and deploying SSL TLS certificates for AWS services and internal resources. With ACM, you can quickly request a certificate and deploy it on various AWS resources such as Elastic Load Balancers, Amazon CloudFront distributions, and APIs on API Gateway. ACM handles the renewal process for certificates, eliminating the need for manual intervention and ensuring uninterrupted security. SSL TLS certificates provisioned through ACM can be used to secure network communications and establish the identity of websites and resources on both public and private networks. ACM enables you to create private certificates for your internal resources and centrally manage their lifecycle. Public and private SSL TLS certificates provisioned through ACM and used exclusively with ACM integrated services such as Elastic Load Balancing, Amazon CloudFront and Amazon API Gateway are provided at no additional cost. You pay a monthly fee for the operation of each private certificate authority CA until you delete it, and for the private certificates you issue that are not used exclusively with ACM integrated services. You also pay for the AWS resources you create to run your application. So understanding SSL TLS certificates. SSL TLS certificates allow web browsers to identify websites and establish secure encrypted network connections using the SSL TLS protocol. The Secure Sockets Layer SSL and its successor Transport Layer Security TLS are cryptographic protocols designed to provide secure communication over the internet. Certificates are a crucial component of the PKI system, which is a set of roles, policies, hardware, software and procedures needed to create, manage, distribute, use, store and revoke digital certificates. PKI enables one party to establish the identity of another party using certificates, provided that both parties trust a third party known as certificate authority. CAs are trusted entities that issue digital certificates, which include the public key and the identity of the owner, and are signed by certificate authorities' private key to ensure authenticity. So let's see private certificates. This is to secure internal resources which are private, which are not exposed over the internet. So first, identify organizational resources. So private certificates are used to identify various resources within an organization such as applications, which are software programs used by the organization, services, which can be internal services that support the organization's operations, devices, physical devices like computers, smartphones and IoT devices, and users, which can be employees, contractors and other individuals accessing the organization resources. Establish secure encrypted channels. So private certificates help establish secure encrypted communication channels between different endpoints within the organization. Each endpoint uses a private certificate and cryptographic techniques to prove its identity to the other endpoint, ensuring secure communication. Secure various internal endpoints. So private certificates are used to establish encrypted communication channels for many internal applications, such as it can be internal API endpoints, so secure communication between internal services and applications. Then we have web servers, secure access to internal website and web-based application. Then we have VPN users, secure remote access for employees and contractors, and IoT devices, to establish secure communication between IoT devices and the backend systems. So this is all about private certificates. What are private certificates? Next is we'll see public versus private certificates. So I'm not covering public certificates because they are used, so every time you go to https://google.com, you are using a public certificate. So let's see the key differences between public versus private certificates. First one is purpose, to identify resources and secure communication. So public certificates help identify resources on the public internet and secure communication between these resources. And private certificates serve the same purpose as public certificates but for private networks instead of the public internet. Second point is about trust. There is a automatic versus explicit configuration. So in case of public certificates, applications and browsers automatically trust public certificates by default without requiring any additional configuration. But in private certificates, administrators must explicitly configure applications to trust private certificates as they are not automatically trusted by default. Then third point is about certificate authorities, CAs, and this is about regulations and management. So public CAs, public certificate authorities, which issue public certificates, must follow strict rules, provide operational visibility, and meet security standards set by browser and operating system vendors that decide which CAs are automatically trusted. So this is important because when you use your browser to, let's say, go to https://google.com, your browser already has a list of public certificates and public certificate authorities, and because of that, it knows whether the google.com is issued by a trusted CAs. So that is why we have some regulatory requirement and strict rules which must be followed, and that's why it is automatic. There is no configuration you have to do at your browser to trust the google.com or some trusted websites and all. But in case of private CAs, that's why it's explicit configuration. Next point is private CAs are managed by private organizations and their administrators can establish their own rules for issuing private certificates, including practices for issuing certificates and the information a certificate can include. Okay, next is benefits of AWS Certificate Manager. First one is ACM simplifies the process of enabling SSL TLS for websites or applications on the AWS platform, making it easier to secure your online presence. ACM eliminates many of the manual processes previously associated with using and managing SSL TLS certificates, saving you time and effort. ACM helps you avoid downtime caused by misconfigured, revoked or expired certificates by automatically managing renewals, ensuring uninterrupted service. When you use ACM to manage certificates, the private keys are securely protected and stored using strong encryption and key management best practices, enhancing security. ACM allows you to use the AWS Management Console, CLI or ACM APIs to centrally manage all of the SSL TLS ACM certificates within an AWS region, simplifying certificate administration. ACM integrates with other AWS services, enabling you to request an SSL TLS certificate and provision it with your Elastic Load Balancer or Amazon CloudFront distribution from the AWS Management Console through AWS CLI commands or with API calls. So certificate types managed by AWS Certificate Manager, ACM. First one is public certificates, which are Amazon issued. So you can request Amazon issued public certificates directly in ACM. Renewal and deployment managed by ACM. So ACM manages the renewal and deployment of public certificates used with ACM integrated services such as CloudFront, Elastic Load Balancer and Amazon API Gateway. Next one is private certificates, automatic renewal and deployment with ACM. You can delegate private certificate management to ACM, which can automatically renew and deploy private certificates used with ACM integrated services like Amazon CloudFront, Elastic Load Balancer and Amazon API Gateway. You use with EC2 containers, on-premises servers, IoT devices. So you can export private certificates from ACM and use them with EC2 instances, your containers, Docker containers or any other containers, on-premises servers and IoT devices. CloudWatch notifications for renewals. So with AWS Private Certificate Authority, Private CA automatically renews these certificates and sends an Amazon CloudWatch notification when the renewal is completed. You can write client-side code to download renewed certificates and private keys and deploy them with your application. Okay, next one is about imported certificates. This is also third type of certificate types managed by AWS. So you can import third-party certificates into ACM. If you want to use third-party certificate with Amazon CloudFront, Elastic Load Balancer or Amazon API Gateway, you may import it into ACM using the AWS Management Console, CLI or APIs. Manual monitoring and renewal responsibility. But ACM cannot renew imported certificates, but it can help you manage the renewal process. You are responsible for monitoring the expiration date of your imported certificates and for renewing them before they expire. CloudWatch metrics for expiration monitoring. You can use ACM CloudWatch metrics to monitor the expiration dates of imported certificates and import a new third-party certificate to replace an expiring one. So ACM certificates, regional resources and usage. ACM certificates are regional resources. So certificates in AWS Certificate Manager are tied to specific AWS regions and are not automatically shared or replicated across regions. So this is you have to keep in mind. So you have to be conscious about the fact that you are working with which region, and if your, let's say, load balancer is running in one region, that certificate must be in that region. If you are working with some other region, you have to make sure that you create another certificate in a separate region. So it cannot be shared or it cannot be replicated. Using certificates with Elastic Load Balancer across regions, so you can request or import certificates for each region. To use a certificate with ELB for the same fully qualified domain name, FQDN or set of FQDNs in multiple AWS regions, you must request or import a certificate for each region separately. Revalidate domain names for each region. For certificates provided by ACM, you must revalidate each domain name in the certificate for each region. You cannot copy a certificate between regions. Using ACM certificates with Amazon CloudFront. So request or import certificates in US East, North Virginia region. So I just want to, CloudFront is a global service. So we are just, it's not per region. That is why it specifically says US East 1, which is North Virginia region. So if you are working with CloudFront, you only work with US East 1 region. So you have to go change in your console, or when you go to CloudFront, you will not see any option to work with regions because it's a global service. To use an ACM certificate with Amazon CloudFront, you must request or import the certificate specifically in the US East, North Virginia region. Certificate distributed to all configured geographic locations. So ACM certificates in the US East, North Virginia region that are associated with the CloudFront distribution are automatically distributed to all the geographic locations configured for that distribution. So let's see services integrated with AWS Certificate Manager. So first point is you cannot install your ACM certificates or your AWS private CA certificate directly on your AWS based website or application. Basically you have to use ACM service and you have to provide a reference in the below services which I will talk about. You cannot directly install, like you cannot take and directly install in these services. You have to provide a reference. So it makes it much more easier, and that's how ACM can manage the whole life cycle. So let's see the services which are integrated. This one is obvious: Elastic Load Balancer, load balancing, Amazon CloudFront, Amazon Cognito, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, AWS App Runner, Amazon API Gateway, AWS Nitro Enclaves, AWS CloudFormation, AWS Amplify, Amazon OpenSearch Service, and AWS Network Firewall. And that's all. Thanks for watching.